Hello everybody and welcome back. Today we are going to be going over our Unit 6 study guide on meteorology. You guys know the drill by now. You should follow along and check your answers. If for some reason your answers haven't been completed, go ahead and follow along, review, and type your answers in and then submit your study guide on Canvas. Alright, so we're going to jump right into it. So for Lesson 1 for atmospheric heating, it asks us to match the correct type of heating with the description. So the first one is the transfer of heat through direct contact. So direct contact is going to be conduction. So we're going to write C. Okay, so remember, examples of conduction would be like making breakfast in a skillet. So when the food touches the pan is hot, transfers the heat to the food, and the food cooks. So direct contact is conduction. Transfer of heat through electromagnetic waves, that's going to be radiation. So we're going to put an A. So remember, radiation is anytime you can feel the heat from, a fire or the electromagnetic waves from the sun. You don't have to physically touch the sun or touch the fire in order to feel the heat. So it's the waves that are emanating off of that energy source, and you can feel it on your skin without having to have physical contact. So that's radiation. And then finally, the flow of a heated substance, that is going to be our convection. So remember, we've talked about convection so much at this point in the semester. We have convection currents in our mantle, in our oceans, which is what drives those deep water currents, and also we have them in our atmosphere. So with convection currents, remember what's happening is that, let's use like the currents in the magma and the plate tectonics, for example. So in our Earth, we have the magma that sits in the mantle, and as it's close to the heat source of the core, it heats up. And then as it heats, it becomes less dense and it rises. And then as it moves away from its heat source and gets to the top, it will cool down, become more dense, and then fall back down again. So it's that circular repeating pattern and the movement of just the flow of a heated substance. A good example of that would also be like a lava lamp. So if you've ever watched a lava lamp, that's going to be a convection current. Okay, so C, A, and B for number 1. 2 asks us to describe the difference between weather and climate. We've done this already on a quiz and in an assignment, but weather is short term. And these are the daily changes in the atmosphere. Okay, so it's sunny outside, it's raining, it's 52 degrees. Those things tell us the weather. Climate is long term. Okay, so these are weather patterns over a long period of time. What this means is that climates of an area have predictable patterns. So we in North Carolina live in a temperate climate, meaning that we have 4 seasons. We have a predictable amount of rainfall each year, and that is our climate. So today it's cloudy. I think the high is supposed to be like 81. That's weather. But the fact that we live in an area where we're transitioning from spring to summer, that in predictable manner, that is our climate, okay? Another example of climate would be like a desert area. If you live in a desert climate, you can expect to have high temperatures all year and a low amount of rainfall, okay? So weather is day to day, climate is over a long period of time. Number 3 asks us which of the following is not a greenhouse gas. So we have water vapor, carbon dioxide, gasoline, and methane. The answer here is going to be gasoline. So the combustion of gasoline does create carbon dioxide, which is a greenhouse gas. However, the gasoline itself is not a greenhouse gas because gasoline is a liquid. So a greenhouse gas that warms the planet would have to be in a gaseous form. Okay, so the combustion of gasoline does make CO2, which is a greenhouse gas, but the gasoline itself is not a greenhouse gas. Water vapor, carbon dioxide, and methane all are, and they all contribute to the warming of the planet. So lesson 2 says for the air masses and winds, so remember this is where we talked about the different types of air masses and where they come from and what their characteristics would be. So we've got the 4 here, and we're just going to make sure we know where they're coming from and whether they were made over the land or the ocean. So the first one is Maritime Polar. So maritime, anytime you see maritime, that will be over the sea. And anytime you see polar, that will be cold. Now, if we're talking about being in the northern hemisphere where we are, so we're going to use ourselves as a reference, this would be coming from the north. Okay, so for a maritime polar, maritime means over the sea. Polar means it's cold, so it's coming from the north in the northern hemisphere. Okay, we are not going to trick you with like northern versus southern hemisphere. As long as you know that a maritime polar is wet and cold, you'll be all right. Okay, so this air mass would be wet because it forms over the ocean, and it would be cold because it comes from a polar climate. Okay. Continental polar, so if it's continental, it forms over the land, and it would be dry because it's not picking up moisture. And then if it's polar, again, for our northern hemisphere, it's coming from the north. So a continental polar would be dry and cold. So this would be a dry, cold air mass. Maritime tropical, so we're seeing this maritime again, which means it's over the sea. And then this time it's tropical. So instead of being wet and cold, it's going to be wet and warm. So this will be a wet, warm air mass. And for our northern hemisphere, if it's coming from the tropics, it's coming from the south. Okay, so from the south, tropical area, it's going to be warm. Okay, continental tropical, again, continental, so it's over the land. And then it's tropical, so again from the south. And again, it's going to be warm. So this would be a dry, warm air mass. Dry because it's forming over land. Warm because it's tropical coming from the tropics. Okay? So in this lesson, we also learned about the different types of fronts. So we just need to be able to identify them. Okay? And it looks like this got messed up just a little bit. Okay. All right, so here we've got our mixture of our semicircles and our triangles. This is going to be a stationary front. So I'm going to put B. So remember, stationary fronts typically bring multiple days of rainy weather. Okay, so it takes a lot to move them out. There's typically not enough of a force to move them out. So you'll get just multiple days of wet, stormy weather. The blue triangles, that is a cold front. We're going to put D. And cold fronts bring cooler temperatures and typically rainy weather. The red semicircles are warm fronts. So we're going to put A. And remember, warm fronts, they bring warm weather, and they typically bring sunny, fair weather. Okay, and then finally, we have our occluded front, which is C. And remember, an occluded front occurs when a cold front overtakes a warm front, and the warm front kind of spirals around itself. I think there's only one question like that on your test, and you've already seen it on your quiz. So as long as you go back and review your quiz, you should be okay. Okay, so B, D, A, and C. So 6 is asking us to complete the table below. So we've got our cloud names, the altitude, and the shape as well. So the first one is a stratus cloud. Typically, stratus clouds are low-lying, and then they look like a blanket. So remember, stratus clouds are the ones that you see, like if somebody says, oh, it's cloudy outside, that's going to be because of a stratus cloud. Alto cumulus, remember alto means middle, so this will be a middle cloud. And then cumulus is a fluffy white cloud. So when you think of like, I did not spell that right. If you think of like the typical cloud in like cartoons, like that are really fluffy. If you think of like the intro to Toy Story, and you see Andy's wallpaper in his bedroom, like the iconic white against the blue background, those are cumulus clouds. And then finally, our cirrus clouds. These are high, so they're high up, and they're wispy. And then they look like curls of hair. Okay, so cirrus, cirro means high. But the cirrus clouds are those really super tall ones that look like wispy curls of hair. Okay. 7 says true or false. Thunderstorms often develop from cumulonimbus clouds. That's going to be true. So anytime you get a big storm, thunderstorm, those are typically associated with the cumulonimbus. So cumulo, coming from cumulus, so big fluffy cloud, and then remember nimbus means rain. So if nimbus means rain, a cumulonimbus is going to be a big fluffy rain cloud. And remember, these form vertically. So if you're looking at a diagram of clouds, these are going to be the big column clouds that you see. And then 8, it says categorize the severe storms based on the description below. So we've got thunderstorm, hurricane, tornado, and waterspout. So it says brief but deadly swirling vortex of wind. That's going to be our tornado. This one, tropical storm with winds of 119 miles per hour or greater. That will be our hurricane. Remember, hurricanes have eyes that they swirl around. A tornado over water is going to be our waterspout. And then characterized by heavy rain, wind, thunder, and lightning, that will be our thunderstorm. Okay. I know I'm going a little bit fast, but I do have a time limit on this recording, and also I figure you guys can pause it at any point to make sure you get the correct answers. Okay, so tornado, hurricane, waterspout, and thunderstorm. So 5 was all about weather maps. These questions are just going to ask us about the symbols on a weather map. So it says a red L on a weather map represents, and that's going to be low pressure. So low air pressure. Anytime you see a red L, you'll know that it's because of low air pressure. So anywhere on a weather map you see a red L, be low air pressure. Blue H indicates the opposite. So that's going to be high air pressure. Okay. L, low pressure, H, high pressure. Can't get much more simple than that. All right, so high air pressure is typically associated with fair weather. Okay, so anywhere you see an H on a weather map, a blue H, you can tell that typically cities close to those places will be experiencing sunny, fair weather. Okay, so high pressure equals fair weather. On the other end, low pressure systems typically are associated with rainy or cloudy and overcast weather. Okay, so if it's raining in an area, chances are there's a low pressure system that has moved in. All right, so 11 is D and 12 is A. All right, 6, humidity and dew point. So dew point is just the temperature that air cools down to reach condensation. Okay, so if you go out in the morning and you see beads of dew on the grass outside or on, a car or whatever, it means that we have reached the dew point overnight and the water vapor that was in the atmosphere was allowed to condense back into liquid form. Relative humidity is just the amount of water in the air compared to the amount of water that it can hold. So the higher the relative humidity, the closer the air is to saturation. And if the air is saturated, that just means that the air is full of water vapor. So our atmosphere holds water in the form of vapor, which is a gas. And if the air is said to be saturated, then it does hold water vapor. So the reason that humid days, especially in the summertime, feel so gross and muggy is because when you sweat, our sweat is designed to help keep us cool and evaporate off of us. So on high humidity days, it's harder for the sweat to evaporate, so it winds up clinging to us, so we feel sticky, we feel like gross and muggy. So higher humidity days are typically more uncomfortable than low humidity days, okay? So 13 is A, 14 is D, and then 15 is A. And last but not, and certainly not least, is lesson 7. So I'm going to actually save these because if you guys are watching these on your Wednesday review, we haven't gotten to human impact yet, but we will go over these together in class on Thursday. If you have any questions about these, though, if you're watching this and for some reason you missed class, just let me know. They're pretty easy. They're in our lesson 7 notes, but again, if you have questions, just let me know. I hope you guys have a great day and good luck studying for your test. Bye, guys.